Welcome back to Remodeling Reinvented. I'm your host, Caitlin Copley, joined as always by my amazing producer, Diana Voelker. Today, we have an interesting conversation for you that we're really excited to share. Going into a new year often has a way of making us pause and reflect on our goals, our routines, and very often our homes. It's when a lot of homeowners start thinking, something here is not working anymore, or this year, we finally want to do something about it. So today, we're joined by Sam Lindahl, a project director at Jackson Design and Remodeling. Sam brings a wealth of knowledge to his clients and works closely with homeowners from the earliest planning stages all the way through to construction. In this episode, we're talking about how to approach a remodel with intention, how to clarify your goals, define the right scope, and plan a project that truly fits your life before design even begins. We hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome, Sam. We're so glad you could be here.
To be here. Yeah, start of the year.
I know. So, Sam, at the start of the new year, we often see a spike in homeowners reaching out to us. Often they have that mindset, new year, new me, whether they're working out more, maybe they want to eat healthier. And a lot of times it's to do with changing their homes and they start thinking about that. So, from your perspective, when homeowners come to you this time of year, what do you think is usually driving that desire to do a remodel?
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of those. I think everybody has, again, that fresh mindset. And, we all have our, physical goals and, eating well and all of those things. So I think, you just kind of look at your life holistically. And obviously a big part of that is your home. And, a lot of times at the end of the year, we're so busy with hosting at the holidays or traveling. And so just our time is not as much available as it is typically in the beginning of the year or in the middle of the year. So I think, clients are seeing that the first of the year is really the right time.
Yeah, and like goal setting and all of that.
Absolutely.
So, before homeowners start talking about their materials or finishes, maybe they've gone on Pinterest and House and they're like, I really like this light, or I really like this flooring or tile. And sometimes it can lose a little bit of what the focus of what they want to do.
Right.
So, what are some questions that you encourage homeowners to ask themselves early on in that process, especially during the beginning of the year when they maybe are not sure what they want to do or not sure about their budget?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, starting kind of high level and just understanding your home. Typically our clients have lived in their houses for many, many years. And a lot of times I hear my clients saying, hey, we've tolerated this long enough and ready for, something new. And a lot of times what would be good to ask yourselves is, what stress does this space create? What are the
Mm,
pain points that I'm experiencing as I'm living on a daily life? And, that could be from waking up in the morning, but you feel stressful in your space because it's unorganized, or it could be components of the kitchen as we're getting ready and huddling around the kitchen for packing our lunches for the kids' school. A lot of those things can create challenges. And so I think identifying what creates those stressors in your life is good. And then also potentially, what are we willing to compromise and where are we not?
mhm.
So a lot of times clients will come with a wish list of a lot of different components,
Okay.
and we have to prioritize those things. And then, also I think, are we solving one problem? Solving one thing, or are we solving several things? I think that's a little bit of a discovery process as well.
And you probably have a lot of married couples, mm,
Yes.
and it's you're also prioritizing those 2, right?
Exactly.
Maybe the husband has his own wants versus the wife. So
Every client is a little bit different, right? So every lifestyle is different. So it's really identifying what suits you the most and what you're moving away from and what you're moving towards. And so, yeah, every client is different.
Yeah.
whether it's a couple. Sometimes we call ourselves therapists. We have to play the mediator sometimes as far as wants and needs and those priorities, but
Yeah.
that's kind of the focused effort that I play sometimes in those relationships, yeah.
And you probably have seen an increase in planning for the future, like maybe they have aging parents or
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially nowadays, remodeling is expensive and you're making choices and you're making a big investment. And a lot of times it's for the long term. It's typically not a short term quick fix. And so when you're looking at that type of project, you want to look into the future and things
right.
like aging in place and getting wider doorways or doing a curbless shower or components like that that will just make life so much more simpler in
Yeah.
the future.
We've actually created a New Year remodel homeowner checklist that you'll be able to download from the episode description. And some of those will include questions that Sam just mentioned, along with some additional prompts that should help you with your goals and priorities. But I think it's just kind of walking through your home. What bothers me about this
Mhm.
space? And how do I feel when I walk into it? These are all things and thoughts, like you said,
Yeah.
we can write down and take note of.
Exactly. And I think a lot of times it's sometimes with, hey, I want new cabinets or I want new finishes. But it really is a deeper level of understanding kind of the core root cause,
Okay.
of identifying some of those questions and getting down to the functionality.
Yeah. So you probably, maybe when you go out there for the first time, you're helping them uncover things they didn't even think about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some of
It's
the
definitely a
Mhm.
discovery process. So, I'm walking into homes then with a curious mentality. Right. And so it's really about getting to know the client and again, their wants and their needs for their space. But sometimes, we discover that together,
Yeah.
kind of the questioning. So
Oh, that's great. Nice. And House published their 2026 kitchen trends study. And according to their survey, improving the functionality of their kitchen is usually what moves their project forward. And 41% of the homeowners that were surveyed shared they can no longer stand the style of their old kitchen. And 38% either have a kitchen that's very old or deteriorated. Maybe the cabinets are starting to fall off the hinges and they're just sort of making things work.
yeah.
Maybe their oven
Mhm.
stopped
Yeah.
working and they're like doing some DIY projects to keep them going. Does that kind of line up with what you're seeing out there? And I mean, that was just kitchens, but just in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at specifically San Diego and kind of the homes that are currently built here, a lot of times we're walking into houses that are as early as the 1930s, but typically it's, 70s, 80s, 90s.
Mhm.
And, it's definitely time for a refresh.
Yeah.
And you typically will see remodels happening about every 15 to 20 years.
Okay.
Great.
The general
The good
kind
stuff.
of, when you're looking at specific spaces like kitchens and bathrooms as far as trends and materials and finishes.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's because it's such a big investment.
Correct.
Yeah,
It is a substantial investment. And again, it just kind of goes back to wanting to do it right and making sure that you're discovering those components and understanding the
right.
functional space.
Do you feel like and some of these older homes, do you feel like sometimes it's tempting to go, "Gosh, I might as well just move at this point?" Do you talk them through that process and the pros and cons of each?
Exactly. And so, I mean, if you're investing in a remodel project, right, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, hey, what if we took that money and we decided to move? Right. And so it's looking at what does that look like? And so it's asking yourself as a client, hey, what does it look like to move? The things to consider is the neighborhood, right?
Mm,
Or do we like our neighborhood? Does it bear too many challenges to get what you really want for what you're looking for as far as your lifestyle? So there's a lot of components that you can ask specifically around whether it makes sense to move or remodel.
yeah.
A lot of times when I do talk to clients that look at moving is there's also a cost to it. You could be spending 10, 15% of that new home in actually moving costs. So
Mhm.
that's also something to consider. And a lot of times, honestly, when I speak with clients that have looked at moving, they say they're going to have to remodel anyways.
That's
So a lot
true.
of times the new house might have 7 or 8 of the check boxes, but they still want a new kitchen or still want to add on or some components of that.
And I feel like it's very exhausting moving and then adding a remodel to the mix.
Yes.
That would be a lot.
So I can speak on experience with that. I just finished a
Oh my
move.
Congratulations.
Thank you. The dust is settling a little bit, which is nice, but yeah, it's a taxing thing. It is a little bit stressful, and especially if you have family and other influences that create that move a little bit more challenging, but, yeah, all things to consider.
Yeah, and having those emotional ties to your home can also keep you maybe
Absolutely.
you're good friends with your neighbors across the street and you don't wanna
Absolutely.
move.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
wow, that's awesome. So, Sam, earlier you talked about how lifestyle changes can also affect whether or not they are interested in pursuing a remodel. Do you think you could expand on that a little bit more and maybe give us an example?
Yeah. I think one client that comes to mind, I met these folks probably about 4 years ago. And when I first met with them, they had a pretty small and confined home. So this was a house that was built in the 60s here in San Diego. And they really came to me with a vision and ideas of what they wanted to do to transform the space. And so the initial conversations really started out as, hey, just tell me a little bit about yourself and just to get to know them a little bit on a deeper level and not just what they wanted to do, but also kind of their vision for the future as well. And
Okay.
so what we did was expand the kitchen. So we actually built an addition to allow for a larger kitchen so that they could host. And we also built a second story addition above that that allowed for a bonus room. Biggest challenges they had was a small living space,
Mhm.
and they wanted to be able to comfortably entertain, host their family, and so that was definitely a non-negotiable for them was that expanded space,
Yeah.
and so we were able to accomplish that for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can all relate when you have
Nice.
a tight space and
Yes.
family. That can definitely add to the stress, just like you said
Yeah,
earlier with the
exactly.
holidays, and everyone wants maybe some private extra privacy,
Mm,
or when they want to be able to interact, their space to do it.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and they're proud of what they have, and
Yeah, and I still in contact with these folks and talk about the holidays and, wish them Merry Christmas and those types of
yeah.
Nice.
got a handwritten letter from them
Oh
Oh,
my gosh.
saying that, they absolutely love the space and create those memories that they initially talked about when we first met. And
oh,
so it's
Wow.
really cool seeing that come to life.
oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, I mean, it really does change someone's life, their
It is.
Mhm.
Big
environment. Yeah, and I think that's something to think about this whole new year, new me. A lot of times it's your surrounding environment that can contribute to the psychology of how you feel. So, no, it's definitely something to think about. I notice with myself when my bedroom is all clean and I make my bed, I
Yeah.
feel good.
Everything in its right place. Absolutely.
Oh, so let's talk about defining the project scope. We've heard this term scope of work mentioned a lot. And that term, I think, especially if you've never remodeled before, it can feel a little bit intimidating. From your perspective, what do you think the scope of work or project scope really means?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different definitions of what a scope of work entails. It could be 2 pages, it could be 40 pages, and I
Mhm.
think that really matters. But in my opinion, a scope should really define the entire project from the initial planning and permitting, essentially to the final punch list walk. Those things should include what spaces we're affecting. They should include things of how the structure is impacted of the home, if we're going
Okay.
to be moving any walls or doing additions, things like the foundation, things like the framing, things about the roof structure. This should also include all the systems. So all your plumbing, your HVAC, your electrical. It could include upgrades to that for sound systems or home automation.
Mhm.
So you talk about those types of possibilities. And then you kind of take it into the finishes. And so, how is this project finished out? What type of appliances do we want? What level tile do we want?
Mhm.
So, we talk about all of the components. And I think also having a clear budget as
Okay.
well. And so having a clear cost of what the project is going to be. And so having that detailed out as well as how you're paying for it, should
Mhm.
be something that you should be looking for as a client when you're working with a company. And then kind of along with the budget, it should have a timeline as
Yeah.
well. And so an understanding of what that timeline looks like for the construction of a project.
Right.
So I think ultimately it's about, not what you're doing, but also how and
Yeah.
defining how you're building it to get from point A to point B.
Yeah. Because have you seen it happen where maybe you've heard a story in the past where maybe they remodeled before and they sort of designed as they went along?
Absolutely. I speak with a lot of clients, and one of the questions that I ask them is, have you ever remodeled before?
Yeah.
And, some clients say yes, and sometimes they hesitantly say yes because it was a bad experience. And
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately, you have to kind of hear that. But yeah, there definitely are some challenges that go with this. There's just an immense amount of details that go into even the planning side of things. So it's
Mhm.
really important to understand and define that scope of work, and so that you can just plan and execute on the construction phase properly.
Right. And it could be where maybe they've never done it that way before. So it may seem like a lot of work in the beginning,
Sure.
but in the end, it'll make for a smoother project probably.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like a clearly defined scope really protects you
Yeah.
in the sense of understanding exactly what's involved in the project, and down to the level of defining each space in each
Mhm.
room.
Yeah.
What goes to the electrical? Are we putting in can lights? Are we putting in J boxes? Are we putting in dimmers? Are we putting in three-way switches? So there's a ton of components just within each category that needs to be defined so that you as a client understand what the expectation is for the finish.
Yeah.
And so again, it's really just about protecting yourself, and you're really buying an insurance for your project.
It's true, and setting those expectations with
Yeah.
each other,
Mhm.
and you feel confident going forward,
Yep.
and you help clients through all of those
Yep.
decisions, along with the designers and the whole team. And you mentioned the budget. So, what do you think, from your perspective, what element has the biggest impact, do you think, on the budget?
Yeah, I think a lot of times as you're looking at pretty pictures online or Instagram or House or anything like those, things can be flashy like the appliances. Oh, they have an upgraded appliance package, or they have beautiful custom light fixtures. And yeah, those can be expensive. But again, I think what people don't think about is essentially how they got there, right? So I talked about how the project is built versus just the what, and what's entailed into adding an island to your kitchen, right? So if we want to move the sink from the perimeter or add a sink to the island, you have to saw cut the foundation. You have to run your underground sewer, and you have to run plumbing to those locations. So there's definitely costs, obviously, to get those types of components in your project. And those are the things that you'll need to define on the front side before even the finishes go in.
Right.
So a majority of your budget, I think, will go and be applied to the systems and how the project is built.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for something that's a little bit more complex or
Mhm,
architecturally
mhm,
focused, that will also drive the cost along with
mhm.
the finishes, but
Yeah.
usually the some of the structural things have a lot of
Yes.
impact. And speaking of that, from your perspective and from what you've seen, I know some people they want to phase out a project.
Sure.
When does it make sense to phase project out versus doing it all at once? I know it's like, gosh, if I'm doing this project, I might as well just do it. And like it's
That's
gonna be loud and dusty.
Band-Aid off.
Yeah. So how do you work that out usually?
Yeah, I mean, I think that honestly starts in kind of the early discussion of the project, and just kinda, again, going back to getting to know the client. And talk about like the construction phase as you're planning that out, which will also impact scope, right? So those are something that have to be defined on the front side. But I think if you're looking at holistically doing the project all in one phase, I think there's definitely there's a bigger initial investment,
Hmm.
but there is some efficiencies as far as getting all the work complete one time. You're not starting and stopping a project and then starting again.
Yeah.
So you do have trades showing up multiple times for essentially two different projects. So I think, definitely the investment side and the efficiencies. And I think also, as far as when we're looking at the space holistically, does it make sense to essentially phase it or separate those components? So if you're looking at a kitchen and a family space, maybe that does not make sense because they're adjacent to each other. But if you're doing a kitchen and a master bathroom,
Mhm.
those two components are separate and can make sense a little bit more as you're looking at kind of what shared systems they have. And then I think it just comes down to, the homeowner as well. And, do we want to live through one project or do we want to live through two projects
Right.
essentially? So I think it's just a little bit of questioning yourself, live through this, and on multiple
And there
occasions.
could be other factors, like maybe their children
Hmm.
are preparing to go to college and
Yep.
they can't have a bunch of interruptions. They have to be able to study for their SATs, like
Exactly.
whatever it is.
Yep.
So it's just looking at what is life like for you right now, and does it make sense to phase it? So all
Yeah.
those factors.
Yeah, one thing that we all know is life doesn't stop, right? So
Mhm.
typically life isn't going to stop just regarding your remodel. And so how that best fits within your lifestyle and your situation,
Mhm.
we flexibility, right,
Flexibility.
is
Mhm.
something that we can look at and absolutely suggest on how we approach the construction phase.
And the time
Hmm.
frame, and
Yeah,
so I think it seems like planning is key, obviously.
planning is
Yeah.
absolutely key. Again, having those discussions on the front side of as you're developing the scope on as well as, when it gets built.
So Sam, you gave some of the benefits of doing a project all at once. So on the other side of the coin, when does it make sense, in your opinion, to phase the project?
Yeah, I think there's definitely situations where it does make sense. And I think typically, generally speaking, it'll be more about, hey, these spaces aren't necessarily affected or are adjacent to each other. It's a little bit of a less initial investment on the budget. And so you can spread that across a longer time period. So if you're not comfortable investing a larger lump sum for a bigger project, then you can definitely spread it amongst two-phase projects or potentially three. And then I think also what advice I'd give if you want to phase the project is being a master plan. I think understanding holistically what the project is provides, intentional design elements that you still want to pursue versus looking at those separate spaces. So I still think that there's an intention for doing a master plan that makes sense. And then
Okay.
you can also decide on how to build the project once you define that.
Okay. And how does having the right team help translate a homeowner's vision into a clear and realistic scope?
I think that's one of probably one of the major components as when I think of it as you're interviewing, companies or individuals for your project. It's how does that team work with our
Mhm.
clients and with yourself. And so I think the biggest thing is listening first, right? You just have to listen to what the homeowners wants and needs are, understanding again their lifestyle, understanding, what pain points they have and challenges they have and what they're moving towards. And then it's having a creative team that transforms your ideas and vision into a tangible plan and then having a team experience to execute that plan.
Okay. And a lot of those design questions happen during that interview process too, when they're moving into that design phase, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Those will get discovered and detailed out on how we work together from getting from that initial idea to essentially like a signed contract.
And because everybody absorbs information differently, a
Yes.
designer's perspective would be different from your perspective, and someone
Hmm.
from the architectural department would also have a unique perspective as well.
Yeah, I think there's a beauty about having a team working together versus an individual. Each person has their different expertise and that's brought to the table. And I think there's just a beauty in it. There's just different creative ideas, and it's honestly fun, and it
Yeah.
should be a great experience as you're going through that, and exciting, and, again, you hear kind of the horror stories, but it doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't, and, if you have that right team, then it can be a real successful project.
Love that. Thank you.
Sweet.
Before we get to the quick fire round, I wanted to ask you for homeowners that are thinking about doing a remodel and say they are having a consultation at their house, what do you think they should be prepared with when meeting with someone? What
Yeah.
sorts of questions should they ask
Mhm.
or materials they should have put together on their end?
Yeah, I mean, I feel again when I walk into clients' homes is, they've been thinking about it for a while, right? You're not just typically waking up one day and saying, "Oh, I want to do a remodel." They've put some thought and they've done some research. It's identifying a little bit of that, right? I think, putting together a list of projects that you want, right?
Yeah.
And so creating just a understanding and that you can communicate to what you want to get complete. And then I think also prioritizing them, right? And what's most important to you is very helpful.
Hmm.
So that we can have discussions about, again, what are the non negotiables that you want to make sure that you include? What
Yeah.
are some things that, hey, if the budget allows or doesn't allow, we can put that to the side potentially. So I think, talking about investment on the project is just what budget have you set aside for this project?
Hmm.
Um, us as the expert, we're going to talk to you about budget and we're going to give you guys ranges on understanding, hey, this type of project's going to be low end to high end in this range. And so you'll leave understanding what that project is going to entail. And then again, that helps with the priority, deciding on which project to do first. Things like timeline as well. I think a lot of people ask, hey, when do you want to start the project? But I like to ask, when do you want to be complete?
Like
And
work
s Yeah,
backwards.
and so working backwards allows you to understand when you need to make that decision, and so if you have that timeline of construction and then the permitting process and then understanding the planning on the front side, that's gonna paint a better picture of, "Hey, this project is gonna take X amount of months or years potentially, and when do we need to start the process?" I think that provides a little bit
Okay.
more clarity too. And then I think generally just how you wanna feel in the home. I
Hmm.
think that's it kinda reveals a little bit deeper of what you want to accomplish, and when the dust settles and we hand the keys back over to you is how do you wanna feel in that space?
Hmm.
I think that's really important to make sure that, a well thought through design is accomplished.
Well, I think that's great advice. Diana,
Oh
you
my
wanna take the
goodness.
quick
Yes,
fire round?
Sam. It's time to
Let's
wrap
do it.
things up. The quick fire grand finale. Okay, what is one daily frustration homeowners mention that often signals it's time for a remodel?
Ooh, that's a good one. Lots of different things, but probably something that I experience often is kind of the general statement of, hey, we're kind of always in each other's way. There's a lot of times where houses, again, specifically in San Diego, I think are compartmentalized or they're
Hmm.
separated. And so they're confined spaces like in kitchens or bathrooms. And so a lot of times it's looking at how potentially we will expand that space
Nice.
and better functionality.
Yeah.
Hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah, you definitely don't wanna be
Yeah,
You
after
know,
all that.
yeah, or
Yeah.
like siblings, and they're
Gosh.
like, "I'm using the bathroom,
yeah,
get
Right.
out of here."
absolutely.
Yeah,
All right. So, what is the smartest reset decision a client can make that saves money long term?
I think that's centered around the scope. I mean, I think
Ooh.
just kind of in general, having a plan, right? And then being able to just take a minute, take a breath, slow down a little bit, define what that scope is, define what your challenges are, and then before you're jumping to a solution. So, really just diving in and making sure you have that plan set in place.
Oh, that's nice. What's the one upgrade homeowners underestimate that ends up making the biggest impact?
I feel like it's probably the layout.
mm,
And it may be function too, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of times when we're walking through the space, it might be, hey, we want to just upgrade these finishes, but there's a that deeper level of, hey, what are the real challenges? And I think just being able to explore different layout options and kind of lifestyle and how you live in the home is kind of the biggest impact versus just some cosmetic upgrades, some finish upgrades.
Because, yeah, I'd say you would like to cook a lot more, but the way your kitchen is laid out, it adds all
Yeah,
this extra time. Maybe you do a lot of meal prepping, whatever it
absolutely.
is, and all those minutes add up, and we know time is precious. So
Yes.
by redesigning it to make it work for you, I think that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
Awesome. Thank you,
absolutely.
Sam.
Thank you
Mhm.
guys.
Well, Sam, this has been a really helpful
Good.
conversation. We really appreciate you being here. And I think homeowners are going to hopefully get some good tips and advice when they're thinking about their New Year remodel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to Remodeling Reinvented wherever you listen to podcasts. We're excited to share more with you in the episodes ahead and look forward to continuing the conversation. Thanks for listening.